teach you how to make cucumber kimchi today. It's called oi kimchi, which is another way to make this very traditional Korean kind of staple food. So when you hear of kimchi, a lot of times people think of one kind, but there are actually about 200 different kinds. You can make a lot of different types of vegetables into kimchi, which is like a fermented vegetable. It's a form of pickling, but Korean style. So this is cucumber kimchi. These are my ingredients. I have one hothouse cucumber. That's a British cucumber. It's not the like typical ones you see in the grocery store. They're like skinnier and longer, and I like them because they don't have as much water in them. I have about 4 scallions or green onions that I chopped up. In here I have minced about a tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to mince up some ginger, about like half a teaspoon of ginger, and then I am grating, I would say about 3/4 of an apple, just to give it a little sweetness and natural sugar. I have fish sauce that I use pretty much for every kimchi recipe that I make, and this is called gochugaru. This is a red pepper flake, so basically they are dehydrated, dried red peppers that kind of give kimchi their spice. So before I do anything, I will let you know that I already put about a tablespoon of coarse sea salt on the cucumbers. So I've already put most of it, but I'm adding a little more just to show you. And basically the point of that is to draw out some of the liquids that are in the cucumber, and I'm going to let that sit for about 20 minutes. So in the meantime, as that kind of sits and draws the liquid out, I'm going to show you how to mince and chop some of the other ingredients. This is the cucumber. I left a little bit just so I could show you. This is my knife practice in FCS. So a lot of people like to hold their knife like this or even like this, and I like to teach the students that you have a lot more control when you hold it like this. So at the top it's not sharp, it's the bottom that's very sharp. You take your 2 fingers here and you pinch the top and you curl the other 3 fingers around the handle. So it feels very awkward at first, but if you do it often, then it just feels a little more comfortable, and you realize you do have more control, and it is a lot safer. So whenever you're cutting your food, you always hold it with a claw. Don't cut with one hand, but always steady your food with a claw. Not like this, but like this. And I like to chop my cucumbers, I would say about 1/4 of an inch. And you don't need to get your ruler out to measure, but you basically cook to your style. So I like my cucumbers in my cucumber kimchi to be about that thick. Do you like yours? Would you like yours thicker? Make it thicker. Okay, so that is my cucumber. This is my scallion or green onion. This is a staple in most Korean cooking. So it comes like this. I actually chopped the little end piece off. You can regrow green onions if you keep these and then put them in water. But just to show you how I like to do this, I like to cut it on a bias. You don't have to do that. Again, remember, I'm holding my food with my claw. I'm pushing it into the knife, and the knife is just kind of slicing through. So I like to cut it on a bias, which means like they're a little bit diagonal. You can cut them straight, that's fine. So that is the rest of my scallions. This is my garlic. I had already minced the majority of it, but I kept one to show you. So I took the peel off of the garlic. It's like a little papery, and then I cut sometimes I cut the end on. I actually didn't cut the end off of this. So what I do is I take the blade and I don't put the sharp part towards me. I put it away from me. And with the palm of my hand, right here, I am going to slam down firmly but gently. And what happens is it kind of smashes it. So what I'm going to do, it's very teeny tiny, but I'm still going to hold it with my claw, and I'm going to mince it. Mince it means that I'm chopping it into very, very tiny little pieces. So as you can see here, this is not tiny little pieces. So that was one run through. I am going to run it through again. To me, that's not fine enough, so I am going to gather it up and then I am going to run it through again. So, that is perfect to me. So, I'm going to gather it on my knife and then very gently put it in my little bowl. I have ginger here. To peel ginger, you don't actually need a vegetable peeler. I should have done this for you guys, but I take a spoon, and the skin of ginger is so thin, you can just like rub it against the ginger and the thin papery skin just comes right off. So I already peeled it. It's about a half a teaspoon that is going to go in here, and again I'm going to mince it. So first I'm going to chop it or cut it into these little pieces. And it's very stringy. It's a really different texture than garlic is. When you cut garlic, it just cuts right through. But with ginger, it's much more difficult. There's a lot more like juices inside of ginger. I personally am very careful about mincing ginger because I love the flavor, but I don't love biting into a big piece of it. So I am running my knife through several times just so I don't have a surprise bite of ginger. If you're really into like intense flavors, you might actually like that. I just like the ginger flavor dispersed through my kimchi. I don't want a big old bite of ginger personally. So you see I'm running my knife through several times because I want it to be pretty finely minced, and then that looks good to me. I am going to very gently put it on my knife and then put it in my bowl. And I thought I could get away with doing like half an apple. This is a really small Fuji apple. But I'm going to do a little more just to add a little more sweetness to this kimchi. So I have a grater here. It's a zester actually. So if you wanted to zest a lemon, or if you had Parmesan cheese and you wanted very small, grates, then you could use this. But I'm also going to use this to grate my apple, because again, I don't want a big old chunk of apple. I just want the sweetness of the apple and the apple flavor. And so this recipe, I could use a tablespoon if I didn't really want it that sweet. I'm going to use, and a tablespoon, when I say that, I'm not getting out a measuring spoon. I'm just kind of eyeballing. Like if this were a big apple, I wouldn't use very much of it. It's a pretty small apple. I'm using, I would say, about 2/3 of it. You can eyeball it. This is a pretty foolproof recipe. And I'd say that's enough. And then the rest of the apple, I'll just eat later. So this is, these are the ingredients for my kimchi sauce. So I have, like I said, maybe about a teaspoon of ginger, maybe about 2/3 of a small apple, grated, and I took about 3 or 4 garlic cloves and I minced them up. This I'm going to put in my big mixing bowl. I am going to put my scallions in here. So when I say onion, it doesn't have a very intense oniony flavor. It's more subtle. This is gochugaru, which you can get at a specialty Asian food market. There's two in town, one on the east side by the Aldi, and then one on Fuchs Food off of Millage Avenue. I actually like to go to Duluth outside of Atlanta to get a lot of my Korean groceries, but I really like Fuchs Foods as well. So that's about a tablespoon. That's 2 tablespoons. Depending on how spicy you want it. I'm not trying to like burn my tongue off, but I do like some heat, so I am using 2 tablespoons. And then I'm going to use my fish sauce. Fish sauce kind of gives it that like umami flavor, which is a savory, salty-ish kind of flavor. So there's a tablespoon. It's pretty pungent. You don't want to use a ton. It's also very salty, and you remember that we put salt on the cucumber to draw out the moisture. So you do not want to add too much. Here is my cucumber. It hasn't been 20 minutes, but I am going to just rinse some of the salt out and then add it to this kimchi mixture. So it took a little bit of the moisture out of the cucumber. I rinsed and drained, so there's still some saltiness on here, but it's not a tablespoon of salt. I'm gonna mix up my kimchi like sauce ingredients. I'm going to add my cucumbers in there, and I'm going to let it sit and ferment out in the room temperature, and then I'm going to enjoy it a little later. So if you want a more of a fermentation, you let it sit out. I would let it sit out overnight. If you like more of a fresh tasting kimchi, you should contain this in something. I recommend glass because plastic will absorb the flavors of this kimchi, and then you will forever smell and taste kimchi from that plastic container. So I recommend putting it in glass, even like a big quart mason jar, and then you can just put it in your refrigerator.